Okay, and that deal on them 125s, the one was pretty much stock, and I've been working on that, driving it. It works good. I just got to get a seat and a few other odds and ends for it, but it runs perfectly fine. But the other frame had this LIFAN motor in it, the Japanese or the Chinese replacement motor for the Honda motors. And I guess they used them, they could replace in a lot of the smaller bikes, because this is a 200cc, I believe, and they sell for, I think, $459 is what I saw on eBay. Something on that order. They're inexpensive, so you just replace the whole unit. But, I always have my doubts about Chinese stuff. And this one was odd. I have no interest in using it as a motor. But I thought, okay, I'll see what I can get and part it out, because there's a lot of good parts on it. Now, when I first looked at it, I thought it was odd the motor was stuck. When I tried to kick it over, it wouldn't turn over. Well, it turned out the thing had been sitting all the time, even though it was inside. It didn't have a spark plug in it. The hole was wide open. Well, moisture got in there, so the piston had actually seized to the cylinder. There was enough moisture, though I see like the oil rings aren't stuck, but compression rings are stuck. And it took a little tapping to get it out, though I do think the cylinder could be honed out and used. It's surface rust, it isn't really pitted. But it looks to me, I can see no wear on this motor at all. So it really looks to me like somebody bought the thing with the intention of doing something with it. It just sat around open, which is a bad deal. But like you can see, the combustion chamber is perfectly clean. There's no carbon buildup whatsoever. So I don't think it had ever been run. And normally you'd expect to see some wear on the rockers and stuff, but it's basically new. But it's got that rusted cylinder and the rings are rusted, though the piston is probably perfectly fine yet. But like I say, I think it could be honed out and used. But I have no interest in this. So like I say, I'll probably be parting it out. But I wanted to take a look and see how these are put together, just out of curiosity. And, it's the normal kind of Chinese stuff, but what surprised me, it comes electric start, which is a little surprising in that it adds, a considerable weight of the starter. Yeah, and it says right on it CB125G. So it's meant to hook up to a Honda. But they have a lot of gear reduction for that starter. This gear sits in here, the starter sits here, and then this gear, and then it goes on to the flywheel here. Just a whole lot of extra conglomeration to make a starter. But evidently that worked. But there's stuff about this that, like I say, is kind of typical Chinese way of doing things. Like the camshaft, they actually have a ball bearing on the drive side, but on the back side, it's just a bushing. And I guess, at least, because Honda has done that before, where Honda doesn't even use a removable bushing. They actually run them right into the aluminum. And it seems to work as long as you got good lubrication, but yeah, it's where that was. Somebody spent some money foolishly and never got done with their project. Cam chain adjuster, I still haven't figured out how that works. I think it's a kind of a ratcheting deal that clicks one way but I don't know. Everything's held together with these weird little bolts, you know, rather than Allen's like normal people do. Timing chain is actually weird too. You know, the cam chain, it isn't a regular chain like you'd expect to see, you know, like with side plates. It's more built like a timing chain, you know, where it's like a gear chain. You know, I was a little surprised at that, but evidently that's what they went with. But even for being new, you know, there's a little slop in her. But it's like the timing chain on a car is what it's exactly like. Yeah, it's a different sort of a beast. But, like I say, there are a lot of good parts here. So I'll probably be listing the parts on eBay because I think a lot of those, you know, you see these little knockoff aftermarket or weird, odd brand little four-wheelers and stuff. And they use this motor in go-karts. So I would think there would be a need for these parts. Though, you know, if you need many parts, you just buy a new motor. You know, because like I say, they ain't that expensive. Yeah, it's just amazing how much crap they put in for a starter. You know, there had to be a simpler way of doing that. Yeah, and it does have the ignition trigger built into there, and triggers off the flywheel. You know, I think they're meant to be simple. Though, like I say, I think they make a push rod version of this, which I think would be a simpler motor. And if you didn't have the electric start, it would make it a lot simpler motor. But it is a 5-speed transmission. You know, you can't expect a lot for under $500. But yeah, I swear this stuff is. I maybe better check that sprocket might fit on a Honda. That Honda though is a sweet machine, but to go about putting one of these in, that would have no appeal to me whatsoever. You know, I could see. I mean, I'd sort of rebuild a motor, but if if you had to buy or have somebody rebuild the motor for you, unlike that 125 would cost too much. If you can do it yourself, yeah. Or your option would be to switch to this LIFAN motor, because they make several different models for the old 90s and stuff. You know, that got the cylinder that sticks out. So it's an interesting option, but not one that I'm interested in pursuing. You know, like I said, I think I can get, you know, like even these stator, well, that's got to have a certain value. So I'll part her out. Well, an excellent head. Yeah. It just, well, it's interesting that they made the motor, but, you know, their manufacturing leaves a little bit to be desired. I noticed the one thing they don't, most of this stuff, like even this cover, they don't try to make a good mating surface on it with a gasket. They count on O-rings. Everything has got O-rings in it. You know, and that's evidently supposed to seal her up. Which probably works, you know, but I think it's just a way of fudging around the precise measurements on the machining. And I noticed like even on this bushing for the cam, you know, that's not a tight fit by any means, but evidently it's a good enough fit. Yeah, it's interesting. And I wouldn't fault somebody for doing it, but I'd much sooner have the original motor. But I'll have to sort this stuff out. Decide what I would sell with what, and kind of get an idea. You know, can't charge much for this stuff because, like I say, the motors aren't that expensive. But I would think, like the stator's got to be like a $50 unit. Starter's got to be $30. You know, heads and stuff. Usually, if somebody's getting into them, I think they're getting too deep. But it would have a value, or especially like this whole lower end unit where you've got the transmission, clutch, everything, which, like I figure, is pretty much new. You know, I don't think it's been driven. If you just had a new piston and a cylinder, you know, if you blew up your old one, that would be an option. And I don't know how these are for blow-up ability. You know, like the Honda ones, you can wind them out, but I don't know on these. I'm sure, you know, I'm sure the balance isn't all that precise. I'm sure they probably got some vibration to them, so I don't think you're going to get the RPMs out of these that you would out of a Honda motor. You know, it's a cheap motor, but you can see it's a cheap motor. But interesting. But it's always, you know, there's always a weak link in Chinese built stuff. You know, they'll go and use some piece that's made of plastic in a place where it should have been metal, just to save a couple bucks. You know, and I don't know what in the world this. It's cast something, but it's kind of got a gold sheen to it. And the side covers are made out of that too. It's like it's trying to look like magnesium, but you know darn well it ain't magnesium. What it reminds me of is when they used to make that plastic trim on car dashboards that was plated with a chrome. That's what it really looks like, but it's too heavy for plastic. It's got to be metal. And that's probably old beer cans. But it got a weird tint to that. But that is a LIFAN. But I'll have to look up these numbers. Yeah, it's a 161 FMJ. No idea what that means, but I'm sure it means something to LIFAN fans. But there's things that could be done with that. Yeah, like I say, when I say about balance, you know, normally on something like this you would see holes drilled to balance it. You know, they lighten one side. I don't see anything like that here. They just put a slug of metal on for your pickup for your ignition. So I'm sure that's out of balance. I'm sure the whole thing would be. No, geez, I'm sure it's not that precise of an engine. But I think the idea is, man, make them a little loose, make them a little sloppy on the tolerances, and just run the crap out of them. But this one, you know, like I say, I'd swear it hasn't been run, so I can't say that they're a bad motor. It didn't break down. It was let down. Somebody didn't have that motor closed. An open motor is just an invitation, especially like this sitting in storage. You know, it gets hot and cold. Humidity builds up. Water builds up in places you don't want water to be. But so much for that. But that little 125 with the Honda motor on it, that is a gem. I was so impressed when I was working on it. I dig around here, I find, oh my God, it's still got the toolkit in it, the factory toolkit. All the parts are there. You know, I was using it to work on it. That's impressive. They're usually gone within a year or two. Maybe somebody didn't realize there was even one there.